Thank you, Liz, for the introduction. Yeah, this is part of a study that has been done 2 years ago, and the use of dogs in schools has increased immensely in the German-speaking countries during the last years. We have 2 different kinds of dogs. Some dogs who are just coming in 1 time or 2 times per year as visiting dogs. They are there to teach the children how to handle dogs, or also for dog bite prevention programs. And then we have the increase of teachers who actually take their own dog with them to school, and they have a regular presence during class, sometimes for 1 day per week, sometimes for 3 to 4 days per week. And we have over 200 registered German teachers doing that at the moment. We think or suspect, since the number is exponentially growing, that that we actually have a number of about 700 to 800 teachers doing that, and when we add Austria, we have a number of about 1,000 teachers doing that. However, they have not to register anywhere. And what is a very nice development that just took place this year, that in Austria, the Ministry of Education actually edited some guidelines to how to use dogs in schools for educational purposes, and such also, you know, promoted the whole idea of animal-assisted education. And while I'm here and we have such a good and well-informed audience, I want to take the chance and make a really short question. How many of you are from the United States and Canada? If you could raise your hand. Okay, and how many of you know teachers who take the dog with them into class on a regular basis, like every week? Okay, it's about half of them. So because there are no certain numbers that we have where we could compare the United States or Canada to the development in the German-speaking countries. The effects that are reported by the teachers who do that, we have a little survey that will be published hopefully next year, is the teachers report that the children are less noisy, there's less aggression, there are better interactions within the classroom, there's less school anxiety, better school attendance on the days the dogs are there, not on the other days. And also they are employed in special programs like promoting reading skills or concentration trainings, you know, to improve ADHS symptoms. Actually, it is amazing that there's very little research on that topic, since there has been so much going on in the practice. There's actually 1 study, and there are 2 publications that you can see here that has already been done over 10 years ago by Kurt Kottruschall and Ortbau and Hergovich and colleagues. Just very shortly, to give you an impression of that study, there have been 3 different dogs that were present in the classroom on a regular basis. So there was a dog present each day for a duration of 5 months. And this was in the classroom of 1st graders with an immigration background. 10 female, 14 male children. And they also did video recordings of situations when the dogs were not in the classroom. And the main findings were that indeed they found that when the dog was present, there was less aggressive behavior, there was a better integration of the children, especially the outsiders, in the class. The children actually paid more attention to the teachers, and some children interacted a lot, some very little, so there was no general way of how the children confronted the dog, but some rather ignored it, some interacted quite a lot. And the class overall was less noisy, less loud. What we did several years later is that we wanted to have a look again at these effects and kind of replicate these findings. And we looked at a classroom of 3rd graders in a regular school, so no special education needs. And we had a group of 13 male and 13 female children where the dog was present for 1 day per week only, but for the entire school year. And then we had another class in the same school, also 3rd graders, and you can see the numbers of males and females here. The data collection at the beginning of the school year was done before the dog was actually introduced into the classroom, and then shortly before the end of the school year, because during the last 2-3 weeks of school, children behave a little bit differently, so you have to do this a little bit before that. We also, this year is actually the school dog that they had in the classroom we were investigating. It's a very special kind of small breed that you have here. It's a very quiet, mellow dog who's not really showing any signs of stress in this classroom, as far as we can see from the videos. What we did, we used different questionnaires that were appropriate for that age group. One is the Feel Carriot, that's a German instrument, and it assesses strategies on how to handle emotions in certain situations. Like what kind of strategies do you use when you feel angry, when you feel sad, when you feel happy? Usually you do not need so many strategies when you're happy. But do you rather keep to yourself? Do you watch TV? Do you approach another person? Then we had a questionnaire about social experiences in school, social experience and emotional experiences like school anxiety. And then we also looked at depression with a standardized questionnaire. We also have some behavior observations, but this I will not be able to report today, maybe next year at the next conference. And we also had a standardized interview with the children at the end of the school year. And this is a very special situation. It doesn't usually look like this. This is just a reading session for about half an hour where the children can just lie down on the floor and the dog is free to roam around in the classroom, but she chose just to lie in the middle of all those children here. When we look at the pre-post comparisons between the classes, there was no significant effects of the dog on school anxiety and also not on depression. And there are some subscales, dysphoria, agitation, tiredness. However, there was a little bit of a tendency for the school dog class, for the intervention class, to improve in depression scores. If you look at that with the scales here, you can see that the dog class had much higher depression scores at the beginning of the school year, and this declined, and actually the control class had a little bit of higher scores in the overall depression. However, it was not statistically significant. Now we come to the significant findings. The dog class definitely improved towards, in the positive attitude towards school. They like to go to school much better after having the dog present than the control class that didn't have the dog present. Also, they had more enjoyment of learning. You can see the difference here. The light column is always the dog class. This improved, and the other class actually was less enjoying learning after the school year in the 3rd grade. The other effect is adaptive emotion regulation. This means that children actually use adaptive strategies when they feel any kind of negative emotion. In that case, that's the overall scale. So you can see at the beginning of the school year, actually, you had a significant difference between classes, and this difference disappeared at the end of the school year. So at the beginning, the dog class was much worse in adaptive emotion regulation, but it declined less than the control class. Somehow school seems to have a negative effect on your adaptive emotion regulation in that respect. So if you see the overall tendencies, the whole classes somehow got worse scores. We don't know what to make of that. When you look at maladaptive strategies dealing with how do you deal with anxiety, here you have also a decrease. This is regarding the maladaptive strategies, not adaptive ones. So this is actually an improvement that you can see in the dog class, while the control class had quite stable scores in that maladaptive strategies. And the same picture is when you look at maladaptive strategies with regard to handling anger. So there seems to be something very positive going on in the dog classes on how to handle your emotions and how to deal with some kind of school-related feelings. When we look at the interview at the end of the school year, when we asked each child in this individual interview, all the children said that they loved to have the dog present, and they asked if we could do something that they could have the dog there every day. However, we explained also to them that maybe this is not something that the dog would really enjoy, so having it just for one day might be a good idea. Only one child actually, because we also asked for negative things, what didn't you like about the school dog? Only one child said that sometimes she felt distracted by the dog in the classroom. However, even this child would prefer to have the dog present on a daily basis, so she could deal with that little distraction. What is the problem when you look at such kind of study? We actually had done a study in the previous school year with another school dog at another school, but we couldn't use the data because before the second data collection, the school teacher broke a bone and she was away for nearly 7 weeks, and so you couldn't use that data. But when we looked at this, at the videos of the first trial and also of our second trial, you can see that the teachers behave in very different ways with the children. And actually you get the impression that how the teacher handles the children is a maybe even bigger influence than having a dog present or not. And that teachers who really fight with their headmasters to, to get the dog into the school are very enthusiastic, and so maybe they also profit from having the dog there as social support for them. So you never can figure out if it's the influence of the teacher or if it's the influence of the dog. That is a problem, and also we couldn't control for differences at the first measurement point because you have to take the natural classes. There's no way you can, randomize the children, thanks. But this is always the problem when you have field studies in comparison to experimental designs like the ones by Nancy G. These are very clear in the effect of the dog where you do one kind of task with the dog present, you do the same kind of task with the dog not present. So this, but still adding up the whole influences of the dog, it seems like the school dog has some positive influence. And of course, there's always the question when you use self-reports with the children, there are so many influences, like if they had a good week, if they had tests before or something that could influence that. What kind of implications does it have for learning or for school success? First, we really think, or you have to be clear that the executive functions that you need to be successful in school, like impulse control, concentration, reasoning, they all actually require quite a nice positive social surrounding and the absence of stress. And I think school dogs may improve this. We have a lot of different literature from experimental designs that actually show that the interaction with dogs can reduce stress levels. And this is one effect that the dogs might have, but also they create this very positive atmosphere and surrounding, and this is a very good atmosphere for learning, not only in the cognitive area, but also in the social area. And actually, the enjoyment of school adds to that. Having the dog there is just more fun. I want to thank the Industrieverband Heimtierbedarf for sponsoring that, and also for Mars to support this presentation. And thank you all for your attention.